Welcome, stargazers. Today we are going to be looking at Venus through each of the 12 houses. Not that long ago, a few months ago, Astrology with Heather, another YouTube channel, did a really great in-depth look at the characteristics of Venus. So I highly encourage you to check that out if you're unfamiliar. But I thought it'd be great to then take it a step further and look at what Venus is like in each of the different houses. So pull out your chart and see where Venus is for you, and we are going to do a great overview for you. I am Dabney Lawless. I'm an astrologer trained by the renowned Stephen Forrest, and this is the Lawless Astrology channel. And here we look at the cosmos and how the cosmos can impact our relationships, difficult times, and hopefully learn a thing or two about astrology along the way. So if you are interested in learning about your particular love language and how that is reflected in your personalized house, stick around. All right, stargazers, let's go. What is the planet Venus all about? The planet Venus is about relationships, but it's those one-to-one relationships. So it actually can be a business partnership, or it can be your best friend, or it can be your lover. So really, Venus rules relationships in general. Venus also rules over beauty and aesthetics and attraction and what makes you feel beautiful, what stimulates that aesthetic desire in you. So it can be things almost like, decorating your house can be very Venusian. Venus also rules sometimes over money, because the two rulerships of Venus, the two signs associated with Venus, are Taurus and Libra. And so those have, their own individual contributions to that Libra energy. But that's where you get the emphasis on balance with Libra. And then you get the emphasis on potentially luxury from more of the Taurus aspect of things. So what we're going to be looking at is a little bit more of kind of what is your love language. And it's helpful to know like what your partner's love language is as well. And so seeing what house that Venus is in can give you a lot of clues about that. We have another great video about Venus through the different signs, and it's always good to see what aspects Venus makes as well. But for the purpose of this video, we are going to be focusing on Venus through the 12 signs. So here we go. Okay, so if you have Venus in your first house, that makes you quite Venusian. And that is especially true if you have Venus conjunct your ascendant, meaning it's like right on that rising angle. So Venus in the first house means that there's a part of you that really leads with your Venus energy. You lead with the beauty. You radiate something that is very much about aesthetics, very much about relationships. You are a person that in this lifetime are going to have very important relationships that will help chart the course of the rest of your life. You can't get done what you need to get done in this lifetime without the help of others. And so that's very important with that Venus in the first house. Also, there's an attraction with Venus in the first house. People are very attracted to that energy. And so it's actually kind of a blessed placement in some ways for you. It gives you a creativity, and it gives you a sense of understanding the importance of balance, and especially the importance of balance in relationships. So anything in the first house really has an exclamation point into your personality. So I would say with your love language, you need to be somewhat center with that Venus. In a relationship, you understand the dance between, two people. But there's also just this dramatic importance where the relationship has to some degree center on you. You have to be a very active part of this relationship, because it's going to be a catalyst for getting you further in your life. So a first house Venus person is blessed with the ability to attract mates and partners, but they are also attracting people that are going to teach them lessons throughout their lifetime. So that's first house Venus. Okay, second house Venus. What we're looking at here is somebody who is very, very drawn to luxury, somebody who values their they're nicer things. So having, the second house is all about what you value and what makes you feel secure. And so when you have Venus in the second house, there can be a tendency toward a little bit of an insecurity toward relationships, but having a strong relationship helps make you feel secure. You like to be in partnership. That actually helps you feel grounded. So the highest expression of Venus in the second house really is nature, getting out into nature, because the natural world provides us so much true soul feeding and soul food. And that's what you're looking for, is soul food. And so that can come from a lot of different ways. And I've seen it manifest where some people are just big animal lovers and they love to be outside and they just get everything they can from the beauty of nature. And then I've also seen people who really like to go to the spa and they love to go shopping. And it could be some combination of the two, but your love language really does have to do with security. And that's what this second house is all about, and like what makes you feel secure in a relationship. And so if you kind of have an understanding what it is that helps you feel loved, then you can communicate that to your partner and kind of say like, I speak the love language of presence, and that's, how I'm going to bring, you love is I'm going to give you presents, or my love language really is being out in nature together and that quality time of, going for a walk together. So looking at a second house Venus placement, I would say it's really important to kind of check in with yourself and figure out what you value in a partnership, and figure out a way to communicate that to your loved one and help use the language of, this helps make me feel secure. And I think that's incredibly helpful. There is a tendency with Venus in the second house to potentially overindulge sometimes, because Venus wants to, like I said, feel secure. And a lot of times, we see people with like a big second house, they can be prone to things like, it depends on the sign that it's in, but there can be this kind of wanting more. So, a lot of, sitting down and having 3 pieces of cake versus 2. So, Venus likes her indulgences. So yeah, just check in with yourself and kind of remind yourself what makes you feel secure and what's the healthiest route that you can express that energy. So that's Venus in the second house. Okay, with Venus in the third house, your love language is actually language. So the third house, it rules things like communication, it rules things like siblings, and it also rules the neighborhood. Those are some of the shorthand things around the third house. So having Venus in the third house, your love language truly is words. So it's important for you to communicate to your partner how much it means to you when they say how beautiful you look, or they come into a room and they say, I love you, for no reason. And that's also your love language. You come into a room and you tell your partner how much you love them. There's a sense there with Venus in the third house where the more that you work on communication, the stronger the relationship will be. Some predictive astrology things. Venus in the third house could mean that you meet a partner through a sibling, or it could mean that your relationship has some sort of association with your brother or sister, and there is, their friendship is influential somehow on this partnership. You could meet somebody in the neighborhood. That's another sort of predictive thing with Venus in the third house. But I would really say the emphasis here for you is that you have to have the strongest sense of communication. Additionally, you are looking for people with a little bit of wit and intelligence, and that's something that you have to be intellectually stimulated in your relationships. Another marker of someone with Venus in the third house would be the way that you decorate and surround yourself with beauty. Could be around books. You could be one of those people that has an entire wall full of books. So Venus being in the third house really has to do with words and communication and siblings, and also keep an eye out for that next door neighbor who might be your future love of your life. Okay, Venus in the fourth house. So this one, it's very important that you have aesthetically pleasing surroundings. You want to make your home very comfy and cozy for whatever that means for you. Some people that's bright colors and some people it's neutrals. But the feeling really is that you have to be comfortable in your home and it has to reflect beauty. I also see Venus rules balance as well. So another marker with fourth house Venus can be, were you a peacemaker in the family that you grew up in? So a lot of times Venus ruled by Libra, there can be this sense of being the diplomat within the family. And so that's something to check in on yourself about. That can be a really wonderful thing and a good role for you, and it's a strength that you bring. But just checking in about where in your family of origin, did that put you in the middle sometimes? Was it an obligation? Did you feel the need to balance out the energies within the family? So yeah, there's a value of harmony with Venus. And so having it in the fourth house is your family of origin and the family that you create. You really want to have a sense of harmony. There has to be kind of this safe place for you within the family. And so that isn't always true. We'd have to look at the sign and we'd have to look to the different placements and also what else is in that fourth house. But let's say you didn't have the easiest upbringing, but you have Venus in the fourth house. Well, it's also about the house you create and the home you create and the relationships that you create. And you can create harmonious relationships. You can create a beautiful atmosphere filled with big, beautiful, juicy pillows and blankets and, just all of the artwork that speaks to you personally. So I think aesthetics and in the home is going to be incredibly important for you. And I think that that's part of your love language, is making a harmonious and beautiful home. So again, you could have come from such a home, but it depends on a lot of different things. But here, looking at aspirationally, this is really where you shine, is making a truly, harmonious, beautiful, balanced, aesthetically pleasing home for your partners. Okay, so now we are going to look at Venus in the fifth house. And Venus in the fifth house is all about tapping into creativity, your inner child. Venus in the fifth house is all about playing and having fun. So this is a great opportunity for you to take your loved one to an amusement park or to go to a museum and talk through the different artwork and ask them what inspires them. So that is kind of your love language, is play. So on the high side, Venus in the fifth house really does have that ability to create. The two people together bring something so special and unique to this world that, they wouldn't have been able to do on their own. And so there is that creative magic. One of the things about Venus, sometimes Venus can overindulge. And in the fifth house, there is kind of this tendency to overindulge. So what do you overindulge in? And that's something to be cautious of. So Venus in the fifth house, there can be, on the more predictive side, you can have to look out for gambling or any kind of addiction. And it could be an addiction to chocolate, so looking at the places where potentially you may overindulge or you may attract someone that overindulges. So that's kind of like the cautionary tale of Venus in the fifth house. But again, that is definitely not necessarily what has to happen. So I think that your natural partners are people that can see the inner child in you, and they can tap into their own inner child, and you guys can come together and create something really unique and special and beautiful. And so I highly recommend, if you have Venus in the fifth house, take an art class together or check out, some museums where they have really tactile artwork that you can, experience together. I think that's the thing. It's about really coming together, and your partnership creates something beautiful and new for the world to see. Okay, sixth house Venus. So you are a little bit more focused on a healthy relationship. So your love language, frankly, is health and service. And you like to do things for your partner, and you like to make your partner's life a little bit easier. And you really hope that that partner that you attract has that same love language, because that's what makes you feel comfortable and special, is if they come home and they see that there are dishes in the sink and they help you do them. So I think that is one of the most beautiful things about Venus in the sixth house. It can have like this really juicy domestic connection where you guys just help one another. That's the most important thing that you can do, is really kind of see a need and then help one another. So on the downside is kind of an imbalance in that, where one of the partners is constantly in service to the other partner. And that is something that, you may have to check in with yourself if you are the partner that is doing too much of the heavy lifting, or if your partner is doing all the heavy lifting and you're kind of just sitting back letting them. So I think that's a very nice placement with the Venus in the sixth, is the actual mutual support of one another. Also, there can be kind of this opportunity to analyze the relationship and kind of check in and like be really honest with one another about what's going on in the partnership, kind of taking a step back and seeing where the partnership can improve. I think with Venus in the sixth house, you're always going to want to improve not only yourself, but the partnership. And there is a great opportunity with Venus in the sixth house to attract people to you that help you improve. And so that's a big theme with Venus in the sixth house. But your love language, more than anything, is service. Okay, Venus in the seventh. Venus likes to be in the seventh. Venus rules Libra as well as Taurus, but Libra rules the seventh house. So it's a great placement. You are going to be a very relationship oriented person. Much like the first house, the seventh house is kind of the opposition of that. And you are here to find partnerships to help you do what you need to do in this lifetime. So that is going to be a real key thing. You are the natural diplomat. You have the ability to see another person's point of view, and it depends again on the sign. And there is a video where we look at Venus through the different signs. But no matter what, having Venus in the seventh house is a placement that puts an exclamation mark on your Venusian tendencies. And sometimes Venus can be a little indulgent. And it can be a little indulgent of themselves or the other person. And it can also be somebody who's a little bit too relationship oriented. And what I mean by that is really seeing the other person's point of view to the detriment of your own. And I see that time and time and again with a seventh house Venus, they want so much to really please the other person, and they want to be pleasing to the other person, that sometimes they forget their own needs. And so, it doesn't necessarily have to be a codependent placement, but it is a placement where there is a strong focus on the other. So your love language really is kind of being there for the other person, no matter what. You see the other person's point of view, and you want it to be a harmonious situation. So you may not stand up for yourself the way that you need to, or you may attract people, and this, sometimes it's what we bring to the table or what someone else brings to the table, where it's like too accommodating, right? And so nothing gets done. It's really hard to make a decision because you can see the benefit of both sides. So just a strange, weird little anecdote, but I have my Venus in the seventh house, and it's in the sign of Cancer. And I look at a restaurant menu and I have no idea what to order. And I think that has everything to do with my Venus being in that seventh house, where I love food, but I see the value of getting a salad, but then I also see the value of getting a veggie burger and French fries. So there's kind of this like tendency to not always know which direction to go. But whatever direction you end up going, when you make that kind of declaratory statement and you look out for your own needs as well as the needs of the other person, you definitely get farther. So that is Venus in the 7th. So it's very happy in the 7th house. Partners will come and they will teach you what you need to know, and there will be no end to the different kinds of partnerships that you have and lots of lessons to learn. But also keep in mind that, there's balance is what is needed there. Venus in the 8th house is a very juicy placement. So Venus in the 8th house likes to cut to the chase. And there is a strong attraction to intimacy in the 8th house. Not just a superficial intimacy, but the intimacy that goes to the next level. So you're not going to be satisfied with puppy love. There can be kind of an addictive quality with Venus in the 8th house. Venus in the 8th house can indicate somebody who gets almost a little obsessive about relationships sometimes. But when done right, Venus in the 8th house can bring like the most powerful, life-transforming relationships into your life. And you are somebody that is capable of sitting down with someone and being present to them even during the really difficult times in their life. So that's a really beautiful thing about Venus in the 8th house. And that's something that you need from a partner too, is somebody that is going to be present for you during the many ups and downs of life. So the 8th house rules anything that's kind of taboo. So death, taxes, other people's money, sexuality. So if you think of the things that you don't easily talk about over the polite dinner conversation, that's the 8th house. And so you need a partner that has that sort of inner strength that can, go there with you and have those kind of deep intellectual, emotional discussions about what really matters in life. And you're really looking for that next level soul merging. You want those deep, powerful relationships that can maybe be prone to a little bit of drama, but what you are ultimately looking for is a soul merging, and where you guys can know each other for lifetimes, kind of like a Wuthering Heights sort of love. So that is Venus in the 8th house. Venus in the 9th house, get ready to pack your bags and travel. So the 9th house rules long distance travel. It rules knowledge and other cultures and learning and politics. So here we go, where your relationships are going to be much more centered upon getting knowledge about the world around you. So you need a partner that is willing to travel with you. You're probably going to be a great travel companion, and that's what you need. You need a good travel companion as well. You need somebody that's never going to be satisfied with the knowledge they have. They want to continue to learn throughout the course of their life, and not just learn trivial facts, but explore deep philosophy together. These are kind of 9th house Venusian themes, is really looking at the bigger picture and the world around you, and how do the two of you fit into this. So it's a very adventurous placement where you have to think big. You can't think small. Your partner has to be somebody with vision, and that vision is about the two of you. And I encourage you as well to have that kind of vision. So that's your sort of love language, is travel, and where you can learn so much about each other and yourselves through packing a bag and going overseas. 10th house Venus. So this one's all about prestige. So 10th house is the career that you have. It is how you appear to others out in the world. It's kind of like the label that you're given. So how you carry yourself out in the world. And it's different than the rising sign. It's more about that person's a doctor, that person's a lawyer, that person's a ballerina, that person's a stay-at-home mom. Whatever that kind of label is that you're given, that's 10th house. And so 10th house Venus, there's partnership. That's a big part of of who you are out in the world. So you really want a relationship that speaks to who you are, and you can see that your partner reflects on you when you have a Venus in the 10th house. And so, and vice versa, you are the role that your partner needs you to be, you know? So there is kind of this, who are we together as a couple out in the world? And a lot of times with the Venus 10th house placement, there's a desire for it to be prestigious and successful. And there's a desire for it to, you know, you like the power couple, right? The couple that is more together than apart. And, you know, you think of one, you think of the other. That's definitely very Venus in the 10th house, because you guys shine together out in the world. And it's a very external placement. So some of the cautionary tales with Venus in the 10th house is that there can be this sort of obsession with, you know, the perception of other people and what other people think of you versus the true intimacy of the partnership. There can be kind of an overemphasis on looks. But also on the beneficial side, you can meet your mate at work. You can be somebody who actually fixes people up at work. So, you know, anything where you're thinking about work and partnership and relationship, all of those are themes that would be very strong for you with Venus in the 10th house. It also could be that you have a very Venusian career. So you could be an interior designer, you could be a makeup artist, you could be a fashion designer, you could be somebody that takes beautiful photographs. So, you know, that emphasis on beauty and aesthetics too is very high in your chart, and so it plays a very prominent role, but it also speaks to like what you need in your career. So not just your partnerships, you're going to make a career out of beauty on some level. You can also be a diplomat. That's another very Venusian type career. So all of the kind of things that I was saying about Venus before, if you think about, it's not just what you look for in a partner, it's also what you should probably look for in a career that has some sort of Venusian expression that has to do with bringing balance and harmony and beauty out into the world. Venus in the 11th house. The 11th house rules communities and friendships and groups. So a lot of times when I see people with a Venus in the 11th house, they're quite popular. So this is like, you attract a lot of fun social engagements, a lot of, you know, people wanting to fix you up. So Venus in the 11th house is actually kind of a fun energy. And I've yet to meet someone with Venus in the 11th house who just doesn't have a very packed social calendar. And so your love language to some degree is, you know, having fun in groups. And, you know, kind of the new thing now I've found out is, you know, going to the prom in groups. And they never did that when I was younger. And so that's very like Venus in the 11th house. So it's kind of like, let's, you know, go on double dates. Let's go out with a group of friends and take a vacation to Hawaii. So that's kind of that energy of like, you know, tap into your friend group as well if you're single and you're looking for somebody, because your friends might really be the way that you meet the love of your life. In the 11th house too, there can be this tendency where you are the person that plays the mediator, especially if you're in kind of a triangle of friends and, you know, one person is more dramatic than the other. You might have to play that sort of diplomatic role. You might be somebody who sort of advises, you know, the social director for the 11th house. Like you may play the role of, in this group, like who's the one that gets everybody together? Who's the one who takes care of everybody's kind of relationship needs? That may be you. So when you think of the 11th house, you think of partnerships in relation to the group. So being in a book club, you could meet the love of your life. Volunteering, you know, at an animal sanctuary with a bunch of other people with like-minded. I think that's the biggest thing, is like-minded interests. The 11th house also gets stronger as we get older. And so if you haven't found the love of your life, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay with a Venus in the 11th house. Like it gets stronger as you get older. So you may have lots of friends, but you may be the person that, you know, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Don't worry. As you get older, there's more opportunities for that Venus to mature, and you attract to you the partner that you need that has the responsibility and maturity to match yours. Venus in the 12th house is a really dreamy Venus, and anything in the 12th house is kind of hidden from us. It's something that we may not really consciously tap into all the time. So you may not seem like the most Venusian person in the world. You may not indulge that sweet tooth the way that some other people do. But what you may realize is that you have this kind of sense of retreating within with your Venus that then allows you to have really beautiful connections with things like poetry and classical music and the ocean. So a 12th house Venus is something that just happens. You know, there's magic with a 12th house Venus. It's not this out in the world conscious, like leading with your diplomacy, leading with your tendency toward beauty or shopping. It is much more of an internal thing. And so it's all about faith and trust. And so for you, partnerships happen. Relationships come into your life to serve a purpose, but you may not understand it until the relationship is over. So there's kind of more this just flowing natural energy with Venus in the 12th house, where it's not something that is out in the world. It's much more private. I think that's the biggest thing that I can say, is that who you love and who you like are a bit of a mystery to you. But you know on a very visceral level when something speaks to your soul. And I think that you have these very deep soul connections, and that's something to keep in mind when you meet somebody and you just kind of have this sense that you've met them from the past. Like, you know who that person is. Like there's just something mystical and magical about your connection with that person, and you should trust that, because they're here to teach you something, even if the relationship doesn't work out. On the downside of Venus in the 12th house, this is another one of those like indulgent houses where you have to be a little careful, because it can just be and be a little bit unconscious. There can be a tendency to overeat, or to escape into romance novels, or to just watch reality TV to kind of make yourself feel comfortable. You know, how many seasons of The Bachelorette or The Bachelor do you need to watch before you get out there and start your own dating profile? There can kind of just be that, like, I can't deal with this. It's a little too hard for me, because the world and relationships can be quite harsh. But know that there is somebody out there for you. And if you are also in a relationship, you know, you have to kind of fight against that tendency to just kind of Netflix and chill. You know, sometimes you guys have to get out into the world together, but also don't beat yourself up if the vast majority of the nights you are staying on the couch and just enjoying each other's company and, I don't know, playing Scrabble. So I hope you've learned a little bit more about your Venus in the individual house. I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience and what house your Venus is in. And don't forget to check out my other videos where I look at Venus in the different signs. And I also have a video where I look at what planets are conjunct your Venus. If you are interested in individual reading, where we look at Venus and all the other planets, you can check out lawlessastrology.com and you can book a reading there. And yeah, please like, subscribe, share. Any kind of engagement like that really helps with the algorithm. So I'm grateful for you watching my video, and I hope you find this valuable. So until next time, stargazers, remember the universe is conspiring to help you, and there is a reason and a season for it all.